Good afternoon, everyone. The H1B Guy here, and today the H1B Guy live Stamp It Out Q&A episode 11 with Atal Agarwal, founder of OpenSphere and immigration reform advocate. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube and like this video so that I can continue to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. I help businesses and individuals solve complex work authorization issues in the recruitment process while bringing awareness to employment-based immigration benefits. If I can help you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how. And you can book an appointment directly with me via the h1bguy.com. Today's live stream is brought to you by Syndesis, the ideal plan B for high-skilled immigrants currently located in the U.S. whose status may be uncertain. By PERM-Ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process. And by Mob Squad. Are you a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges? Don't leave your fate up to chance. Our partner, Mob Squad, has a solution. Join the squad. Well, Atal, very glad to have you join me. It's a little after 2 p.m. Eastern here on the East Coast, and I know you're on Pacific time, so a little after 11 a.m. your time. Really excited, again, to have you join me. And, you know, you and I met through Twitter. I've been following you from afar for a while. You're very active on Twitter, very vocal on Twitter, and not only active and vocal, but I think the thing that really grabbed my attention is it's more than just vocality. There's action behind your words, and that was the thing that I think for me that really stood out. And so, you know, on your Twitter headline, it says Philosopher King, Iron Man, and building OpenSphere.ai. And so I wanted to have you on because the technology behind OpenSphere is really, really cool tech. It solves an absolute gap and problem in immigration journeys for high-skilled individuals, not only here in the U.S., but globally. And we'll talk about that global mobility as well. But before we jump into that, before we even get into OpenSphere, get into your immigration advocacy, I'd really love to hear your story. Where are you originally from and why'd you come to the US?
Definitely. Thank you so much, first of all, Robert, for having me here. My story is probably a very common story among the people who are in the US, who come from different countries around the world. I moved to US from India. I'm originally from a northern part in India. I was born and brought up in this small village called as Rampur. It's in the Uttar Pradesh state. And then after that, I moved to Delhi for a few years. And then I went to IIT Kharagpur, which is on the east side of India, near Kolkata. And then 7 years ago, I moved to the US, just like with the whole vision about like, hey, I want to learn and grow in this country. And for me, America was very much about, that's like how I have seen so many successful Indian entrepreneurs here, Sundar Pichai, very successful alumni from my college, IIT Kharagpur. So my whole thinking is that, hey, I would be able to do so much more and create more impact for the entire world after moving to the US. So I came here, did my master's at UC Santa Barbara, master's in technology management. Then I worked for a few companies as a product manager. In that process, I also tried my startup. It was in the solar industry, more solar. And now I'm building OpenSphere just based on the problem that I was facing in the immigration. And I was like, I want to be able to give my time and consciousness to a cause that I am facing and so many people like me are facing. That's how I ended up thinking about this OpenSphere. And yeah, now we have a solid product which helps people get O1 and EB1A and EB2 NIW visas, help people get to Canada, help people get to LATAM. So it's like a one-stop platform for people who are kind of interested to just like live their dreams. I think that's kind of where it comes through.
So speaking of living your dreams, one of the common questions as part of the Stamp It Out series, which is an interview series that I started back in 2020 and really haven't done for more than a year and a half. But I wanted to tell your story. Is if you could go back and do it all over again before you step foot on that plane to fly to the US, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give yourself?
Very good question. So I feel like I think this just brings me to this memory. So when I was like leaving India, I still remember there were a few things in my mind. One thing I was really catching up on was I wanted to travel more of India and know India
Mhm,
before I leave. And I don't
mhm,
know why I had this thing in my mind that, I won't be able to see India from the same lens that I can see right now. So I remember I was doing this summer internship just before moving to the US, and I would literally
mhm,
just like Monday to Friday, I would work. On a Friday at the start of the day, I will just pack my bag, and after office, I will just sit in a bus from the bus station
mhm,
in Delhi, and I would just like see whichever bus is there. I will just sit in
mhm,
any bus, and I will go somewhere for the
mhm.
weekend, and I will take two pair of clothes, and on Monday morning, I'm back in my office, and then Monday evening, I'm back home. So I
Yeah,
think travel was a big component of my journey because I was like, I want to travel more and more, and know India at depth, given how much diversity India has before I um, leave India to explore the world.
mhm,
Now, the other thing I remember is a conversation between my father and one of my father's uncle, where
mhm,
we three were sitting, and I was like telling them that, hey, I got this visa and I'm going to study in the US. And my
mhm.
father's uncle says that to my dad, like, this guy is not going to come back. And my dad looks at and my dad looks
Yeah,
at me in the eye because he's like, he is the one kind of giving me permission to be able to travel and do whatever I want to do. And he's
yeah,
very much about like helping me do what I want to do. So I still remember dad looked at me and he was kind of like trying to see what I say, whether I'm going to come back or not. But I
yeah,
still remember, I think I was like, dad, don't worry. I am going to come back. It's just like
yeah.
there was feeling. I didn't know the gravity of that situation, but I mean, I think I
Right.
just was like, yeah, no, I want to give back to India. And to me, it was about an exploration of the west side of the world, learning about
Mhm,
what else is there outside India, and
mhm,
moving throughout the planet. But I think
mhm,
at that point I didn't know this vision of being a global citizen, or a mindset of like where you look at the world from an overview of your entire planet rather than
mhm,
thinking about one country. And I think that's
mhm,
what probably has changed. Maybe at that time my vision was about like, yes dad, I'm going to come back to India and I want to give back to India, and I need to live in India to be able to do
mhm,
that. And maybe I didn't have a vision about like, hey, I mean, I can give to the entire planet now via internet, or without living anywhere in India also, and I can live anywhere I want, and I would still be able to contribute. So I think maybe the advice is like, maybe I didn't have that global ambition at that point. It was like,
mhm,
ambition is like, okay, I want to support India down the road, which is still my ambition. I want to support India and I want to give back to my community. At the same time, now I feel like America is also a part of my community because I have lived
mhm.
here, grew up here, and I
Right.
keep like thinking about like how much I grew in San Francisco, just going by myself on these bike rides. I go to Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm like, how
Mhm,
much how much of me is actually in, like, how much of America is in me, and just
mhm,
this knowledge how it has come, that now
mhm,
America and India both are a part of my community. And I got to think from a bigger perspective about the world. And this is just my love for humanity overall has
mhm,
increased. And I think the advice would be that, you can always expand your vision than what you have for the
mhm.
world later. So I'm very glad to be able to do that now.
So, a kid with an IIT degree playing bus roulette on the weekends decides to pursue global dreams in the US, and in doing so obtained, I would assume, an F1 to come to UC Santa Barbara, and then through the F1, worked on an OPT, and then moved on to H1B. Was that the path for you?
Yes, the H1B guy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the correct
Hmm.
path.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I think that's the dominant path when we look at, the 250,000 international students that we graduate here annually, many
yep.
of which are given 12 months on an OPT, several of which through their STEM degrees get an additional 24 months. And I think it makes time here finite. And, you know, the joke your dad's uncle, right, talks about he's not coming back. So my question to you is, when was the first time you did go back? Were you still in school? Were you on H1B at that point? How many years went by before you returned?
Wow, that's such a great question. I think just like thinking from a where I was in that in my masters, I think it probably was after a year when I
Hmm.
actually went back to India for the first time. And I
Yep.
think, I never realized, and now I think about it, like, that's why I advocate for immigration reforms more and more. Like, a
Hmm.
part of this puzzle is figuring out when you can go and when you cannot go. And you are
Hmm.
always in this dilemma, like, okay, if things go wrong, then you might not be able to come back. And I
Hmm.
think, I mean, I just came back from a trip to El Salvador too, and I still remember when I come to the airport in San Francisco, I always think, what if I get turned back today, and what my
Right.
journey would be? And
Hmm.
I mean, I like uncertainty too, but I mean, at the same time, this is a lot of uncertainty to deal with.
Right.
And I always keep that in my back of my mind. But yeah, my first trip was definitely after finishing my masters, if I remember correctly, and
Hmm.
I went back home and then got to visit my family. In the last 7 years, it's funny, I haven't traveled that much back to India,
Hmm.
but I'm just like very much connected with the community back in India through different startups and through my college community. But yeah, it's
Hmm.
I have made very few visits just because of the job and also my visa and everything, just figuring
Hmm.
those things.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the thing that a lot of folks know and some don't. I mean, IIT as a whole is one of the top institutes in the world, globally speaking, from a technology perspective. Um, the travel piece is one of the things that I think a lot of times is skipped over and forgotten about. And by travel, it's the freedom of travel, your ability to book a plane ticket, get on a plane, go see your family, and return with minimal issues. Um, this is called stamp it out because anytime you leave the U.S. or anytime you come into the U.S., a lot of times there's a visa appointment that's required to have an updated stamp so that you can have that travel. And I think that's the piece where being separated from family, distant and immediate, aging parents that a lot of high skilled immigrants deal with, is what's created a lot of anxiety around travel. And it's one of the things that, for me, I've tried to highlight during the height of COVID. It was a very hot topic. But it still is because when you're on a temporary visa, it's travel it can be restrictive and it can be uncertain. So we talked a little bit about OpenSphere. I want to talk a little bit more about it. The idea behind it, the platform as a whole, how you're connecting high skilled immigrants with immigration attorneys, how you're using generative AI to review and evaluate individual documents and determine qualifications. So, where did the idea come from for OpenSphere?
Definitely, I think there is a story here for sure, and I think I would probably go into a little bit about what happened during COVID with people who wanted to travel a lot more.
Hmm.
I think it is kind of very unfortunate, where a very unfortunate uh, thing for a lot of people, that immigration, which was supposed to be a place to help people live their dreams and able to create more value for the entire world, is causing a lot of internal suffering for people.
Hmm.
And I think this people separated from families is definitely one of the issues.
Hmm.
Aging parents is the other issue, and then kids who are aging out, who
Hmm.
can't even live in the country, where their parents are now like, where should we move like together, to keep the family together. And after coming to America, it really hurts me personally, where I am like, this is not how immigration was supposed to be.
Mhm.
Immigration, the thought of immigration to America when I moved here was very much about uplifting me and helping me
Mhm.
live forward my dreams.
Mhm.
And whenever I feel like someone is struggling with this travel, or where their family is not supported, and they are struggling during their immigration system or living their
Mhm.
American dream, I am like, we got a problem to solve here. This is a big problem. And
Mhm.
I think that suffering for me, just like after doing a lot of advocacy on Twitter, I started realizing that there are some really hard situations that happened which cause a lot of suffering for people
Mhm.
during COVID and even now.
Mhm.
I still remember I have people have commented on my tweets which are about someone could not go to India to grieve the loss of their dad just because of the immigration system, because they were like, I cannot come back if I leave and
Mhm.
continue with my job.
Mhm.
And embassy is shut down, and they cannot get their visa renewed, and now they are like, I cannot go to grieve the loss of my parent. And I think that just like that hurted me personally, because I look at life, there are some moral duties, and we are all
Mhm.
much the values in America, the Christian values in America, and the Hindu values in Indian culture, um, based on my understanding, they're very similar, where we love our families and we are there for our families, and there are moral duties to life that we all have.
Mhm. Mhm.
And seeing that someone could not do their moral duties to life, which is being there for the funeral of their parent, I
Mhm.
felt this wrong. I felt this is not the right way for any country to offer immigration. It is
Mhm.
very important to offer immigration in a way which continues to help them live their dreams, at the same time continue supporting them in the moral duties of life. And this
Mhm.
is what I expect. And look at how American forefathers thought of America. Like when America
Mhm.
was created, the whole constitution is very well drafted to provide those basic necessities to people who live here, and it includes legal residents as well, along with the citizens.
Mhm.
And I have this copy because I did a lot of advocacy to White House. I bought this constitution copy, and I keep reading it, because I'm like, I want to understand the depth of knowledge that is in the US Constitution about where why immigration is not, first of all, explicitly mentioned, but to also understand the depth of knowledge that exists in that. And I keep
Mhm.
reading, I'm like, the definition, what is the definition of an American citizen? And I'm like, what is the true definition? Like, there is someone who is coming to America and living for these many years, paying taxes.
Mhm.
What does the Constitution thinks that this person is as good as an American citizen and should have those rights?
Mhm.
I look at some of the pages in that Constitution, especially about a person, how can you become an elected representative of the country? When you
Mhm.
want a Senate member or a person in the House of Representative, I'm like, what does the Constitution say that you are eligible to do that if you are not even born here? And I still
Mhm.
remember exact years what it mentioned, but it says something like you gotta be in the country for, I think, X number of years. It could be 10 or 15, or it
Mhm.
says you gotta be about 28 years of age to be able to be represent America on the world map. So it says specifically about 15 years as the time period or something like that, that you got to live in this country for these many years and you can become our representative.
Mhm.
When I saw that this is how even the forefathers of America thought about how you can represent America on the world, and then I
Mhm.
see this legal immigrant who has been living a lot longer than this time and
Mhm.
does not have a permanent status in this country, forget about citizenship, does not have a
Mhm.
permanent status in this country, then I am like, this is not aligned with the vision of even the Constitution of America, because that years truly defines on how many years you need to be in this country to be able to represent America on a world scale, which is about the American values in this country. So I'm like, okay, now I know, there is something wrong happening and this needs to be fixed. This is just more
Mm-hmm.
about just going forward with the constitutional values. So all my advocacy led me to truly understand what the US Constitution is about and what it stands for, and why it is so important for us to look at that as our torchlight, that like a lighthouse, than
Mm-hmm.
anything else. And because that is the vision of what America is as a country. Now, during these years, while doing advocacy, now I'm going to come back to more on the open sphere and how it originated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, doing all this advocacy, I continued vocalizing my voice and going with, like, going to White House, going to Congress and talking to people in Congress and highlighting this issue. I think I realized that it is a very hard problem to be able to get all Congress together, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
advocacy is so important. And you do great advocacy, and I'm glad of service in this domain to be able to bring this issue to light. um, I was like, I want to continue helping people who are struggling in this system, at least able to get the liberty that they deserve, and
Mm-hmm.
all ensure that they have options on able to get that liberty that the US Constitution offers.
Mm-hmm.
So, couple of years ago, I've been on H1B, and I've done a lot of work in healthcare in this country. And during COVID, I was very fortunate to get kind of like a work which is about helping people find COVID testing locations. And when
Mm-hmm.
I was at work, my product actually was installed on the state of New York website. It was used by Google and Apple in Maps to help American citizens find COVID testing locations. So I've done a lot of work in healthcare. But in 2022, November 2022 November, I actually lost my job and I got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And as an H1B person, I only got 60 days to find a new job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that moment, though I didn't kind of like, this feeling of, I was getting this feeling about, I felt a little betrayed from the system, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
I did great work for America, and I always thought of America as a global country for the world. And I was like, well, here America abandoned me in a way. They just like gave me 60 days while I have been in this country for so long. And I grew with
Mm-hmm.
American people, and I have never differentiated between American people and other people. I'm like, they are all the same, because I am here to live my global ambition and global dreams. So when that
Mm-hmm.
happened, it definitely hurted me. But I was like, okay, this is life. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to India. And I was all packed in a way in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somehow I started feeling a lot more freedom during those 60 days. So I ended up running Ironman races. I started talking about immigration. I started becoming a
Mm-hmm.
content creator. I wrote a lot of article about day 60, 0 of 60 of layoff, and day 1 of 60 and day 2 of 60. And they became popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I got lucky to be able to find a job in 30 days, though I didn't apply to a lot of companies. But one company, the hiring manager, she just read my blogs and she's like, I really want to support this person. So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
a job also at that time. But I think that was where I was like, there are great people in America who want to help people, who see the talent that people bring to this country, and who believe in the true American values. And I'm like, here I'm feeling a little bit of betrayed from the federal side. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something about this cause. And I'm like, no, I cannot leave this cause. This cause is too
Mm-hmm.
important. I believe in the American values. I believe in the
Mm-hmm.
American Constitution, and this needs to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly and slowly I was like, okay, how can I help? And I'm in AI and I live in San Francisco. So I was just using AI to work on my own kind of O1 and EB1 a petition, and I was writing using with the help of generative AI. And
Mm-hmm.
as I was writing, I'm like, wow, looks like this can help me actually uplift the quality of my petition, and I would be able to write better and better content.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this idea of open sphere started coming in my mind. So I participated in a lot of hackathon in San Francisco. and we started winning some of these hackathons, and I was like, wow, looks like this is a real thing. And it's just since that time that like now I have been like continuously working on it and making progress in whichever way I can. And I was like, okay, I can help people get these visas. Now we have
Mm-hmm.
more than 1200 immigrants who are finding value through the platform, and we have 10 lawyers. So it's
Mm-hmm.
basically a platform where immigrants and lawyers can collaborate together, and they can craft great applications together, and lawyers can actually file for them. So it's like a one-stop platform for O1 and EB1A and EB2 NIW visas. Now, down the line, as I kept doing it, I realized that I am not able to help a lot of people who are going through layoff or something in the US immigration system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started working on the other parts, which is how can I help people relocate to Canada. Then
Mm-hmm.
I am talking to countries in Latin America about what is their thinking about you kind of like immigration and high skilled
Mm-hmm.
immigration, and how can we help this tech talent not struggle this much and always know that there is an option available for them, and there are people
Mm-hmm.
already there, and you people can build community over through the platform too. So now we have a community of around 350 people on Discord.
Mm-hmm.
All these people are great, helping each other, guiding them, and creating pathways in different countries, and
Mm-hmm.
helping get O1 or EB1A. So my goal is this is a global mobility platform
Mm-hmm.
where immigrant is my customer, and I want to really make sure they are able to live their dreams. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, that brings me fulfillment, that brings me joy,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm able to see this person able to live their dreams. And then yeah, so I mean now it's a platform for immigrants and lawyers in US and Canada, and we are continuing to expand it. I'm also in touch with a lot of law firms who actually love our document drafting and
Mm-hmm.
assembly technology. So we might be able to build some white label product for them. So, and down the line, we will work with governments across the world. So our goal is to uplift the whole planet with the help of high
Mm-hmm.
skilled talent, and down the line we will continue helping every economy. And I think as we will see more and more change happening and there is more and more value for the immigrant, I am really hopeful the US immigration system will also improve and will be more efficient, and people can get green cards within 5 years, and instead of waiting for, like right now the wait is like 100 plus years for people born in India. So how can we do this global mobility where we can help people have a very well defined to permanent residency, so they can think about better things and self actualize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where clearly there's a lot of problems, but how do you solve some of the smaller gaps while addressing maybe some of the larger ones? And I think when I look at, you mentioned O1, mentioned EB1, or is it EB2 and IW as well? Is that a possibility on the platform to
Yeah,
have like my case reviewed there as well?
yeah. So EB1A, EB2, NIW, and O1, three visas.
Okay. Yep. Three different avenues, if you will. I think it's a great story because if you look at your product background, your technical training, your experience kind of leading up to it, and then ultimately kind of bridging your immigration advocacy with your tech experience to create a platform which is growing very organically, right? You mentioned 350 on your Discord community, uh, 1,000 users, 10 different immigration firms, working on the platform. It's just an amazing success story, and wanted to make sure that we took time to highlight it because I know there is somebody out there who may be watching now or will watch or listen to this at a future date that can absolutely utilize the OpenSphere.ai platform. So, as an immigrant, is there any cost to me to sign up?
No, sign up for an immigrant is free, and they can get resources in different ways and they can pay for the resources. Right
Yep.
now, I just want to help more and more immigrants, and I
Hmm.
think always here to, just support
Hmm.
immigrants. I think the vision is to support immigrants. I'm not concerned about monetization. I
Hmm.
think immigrants by themselves are so smart, and they can create so much value for the world that if I'm able to even help them move to the next step in
Hmm.
their journey, then I am already creating so much value for the entire planet.
Yeah, that's something I can relate with. As you know, my background is in technology and general tech staffing. I've been doing that for almost 20 years now, and that's always been very fulfilling for me. Is that we get to change careers, career paths, make matches with talent and employers alike. And you're kind of doing something very similar, just in a little bit different capacity. You mentioned age out, children aging out, and I wanted to just talk on that briefly as we kind of move into our immigration reform discussion. Talk about some of the things you've been working on. Um, when I first started working with H1B visas and working with H1B candidates, this concept of H4 dreamers was really new to me. Over the last few years, really starting, I'd say back in 2021, I was connected to the folks that improved the dream, and the term documented dreamer has really kind of taken the mainstream focus away from what was H4, because it's more than just H1B kids, kids of H1B visa holders, when we look at legal childhood arrivals as a whole. And to me, it's one of the most common sense pieces of immigration reform that exists, is providing protections. As you mentioned, like folks that have been in this country 10, 15 years, they only identify as American. They were brought here at birth. They know no other lifestyle than the American lifestyle. And yet, at age 21, they are given a choice of either changing statuses or self deportation. And approximately 10,000 documented dreamers self deport annually. So, very clearly, a big gap there. You also alluded to the green card backlog, which is something that I definitely wanted to get into as well. But when we look at immigration reform as a whole, and I think why advocacy is such a challenging aspect, is a lot of times high skilled immigration gets lumped in and confused with undocumented immigration. And most Americans, the average American, thinks that it's all, you go to the DMV to get your immigration papers, right? It just is conceptually how the average American thinks about it. And I think that was one of the things when I had the opportunity to launch the platform here, and it was high skilled immigrants and it was attorneys talking about the space, yet no one was really talking about it from a staffing perspective, and then a socioeconomic or political perspective. This little bill S386 was making its way through the Senate shortly after I launched the platform back in the summer of 2020. And so if you were to look into your crystal ball, right, and say, realistically speaking, do you think that there is hope for immigration reform at any point in the foreseeable future?
Definitely, I'm hopeful. I think if I'm not hopeful, then I should not be. Then I would probably leave the country,
Mm-hmm.
and would not build something in this domain, and would not want to serve the US market, because I'm hopeful, because I think there is a better future. And I think it's not about me, it's about doing the right thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and doing the right thing here is ensuring future for these kids who are very much American, and who
Mm-hmm.
have America as the only country where they know on this planet. Like otherwise, I mean, I understand the term alien is used in the US immigration system.
Mm-hmm.
Think about me, who actually moved from India. I have a home in India. I can still build my life in whichever age I want to build it, because I just know the people there, and that's my home.
Mm-hmm.
The people who moved here when they were 1 year old, and now they are 21, and they
Mm-hmm.
keep screaming on American flag as like America, America for
Mm-hmm.
20 years of their life. And when you tell them when they turn 21 that America is not your country,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think anything worse can happen to
Mm-hmm.
a human. As a human being, we get attached to things. And if this kid, their whole identity is America, and this kid has been a passionate American, and you tell
Mm-hmm.
them when they turn 21 that you cannot live in this country that you belong to, the country which you have lived for 20 years and you got a self deport, it is a mother disowning her own kids. If
Mm-hmm.
America as a country, as a mother, America as a mother is disowning her own kids here. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that is good at all. That is just actually a lot of injustice in the world. And that's why I feel what's happening with age out kids is actually really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I think it's the one thing that the parents really aren't as aware of when they come on an H1B. They're excited about pursuing an opportunity for a better life, better financial situation, better job, better responsibilities, innovation. But the kids become an afterthought because they're not aware of it. And that's where it's like, no, you need to know that this is potentially an issue that you can face.
Correct. And I think this comes down to hope, that parents come with hope. And every
Mm-hmm.
human being on this planet is like, there is hope, and that's why we live. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what we have seen from the data is there are already so many kids who are aging out, which means it's not a new problem. Like, I have talked to kids who moved here when they were 2 3 years old, and now they
Mm-hmm.
are getting separated and they are deporting themselves, which tells me that there is a data point that this is a problem happening, and change needs to happen in this domain. And I feel like now that there is more data and there is needs to be more awareness about this. And I mean, I am personally making sure that, I told my sister, she has a daughter who
Mm-hmm.
is actually just 2 years old, and I
Mm-hmm.
told her, do not come to America until you first figure out any green card situation,
Mm-hmm.
because I know she would be, everyone loves America, there is no doubt about it. But I think she would not understand the cost of immigration for her daughter at this point,
Mhm.
until her
Mhm.
daughter actually turns to 21 years old, and where she would be like, her daughter would be like, hey, I've been living in this is my only home. Then only
Mhm.
she would realize that I'm getting kicked out of my own home, my own place. And I feel like it is very important to actually create awareness, because I think these kids are going through a very hard time.
Mhm. Yeah,
I've
and I've
talked.
highlighted 20 plus stories through the Documented Dreamers series
Mhm.
here on the platform, and while every story is unique, the theme is the same.
Yeah. So I think I feel, I have my whole heart for these kids who are dealing with this, and here to support them, because I don't think they deserve any of it. Like, this is just,
Mhm.
I think we should take ownership. And I mean, maybe on behalf of American forefathers, I take ownership because I looked at American Constitution as the ideal truth in the world. I
Mhm.
take ownership that this is wrong happening with them, and this should never happen in any country across the world. This is just not
Mhm.
expected. And now I think, as India is doing well and a lot of people are finding opportunities in India, they are
Mhm.
moving back. I have met a lot of people who are moving back, and they are able to fulfill their jobs and back in India too. And I think that's what is purpose of my platform too, is like, how can I
Mhm.
help these people within the US? How can I help these people move to Canada or Latin
Mhm.
America? Maybe like move to a more of a digital nomad lifestyle.
Mhm.
Nothing can fulfill nothing can fulfill the gap, which is about their mother owning them, because they are born and brought up here, and America should be the one giving them. But at least
Mhm.
what I can do is offer them support in these hard times. But I think
Mhm.
that's why I keep advocating for it, even when I'm building a product, because there is
Mhm.
kind of a boundary where it's about a business versus it's about doing the right thing and have the right morals and ethics about a situation. And to me,
Mhm.
this is more about morals and ethics and doing the right thing for people. And I think that's
Mhm.
why I continuously keep doing advocacy, even when I build a product in this domain. My vision is all about helping these people actually get the green card.
Mhm. Yeah, when you look at you mentioned global mobility, digital nomads, the whole concept of that. Um, we make it very restrictive. It's very difficult to not only get physically to the U.S. but to maintain status. You've talked about losing your job on H-1B, 60-day moratorium. Same for folks on OPT as well. OPT EADs experience that same gap, right? That in terms of employment and the challenges that they face surrounding that. We're also seeing a lot more now where folks are deciding not to come to the U.S. from India, from China, because of the restrictiveness, because of the extensive green card backlog, because of the stories that folks are telling where they've had children age out and had to self-deport and dealt with separation. We've also seen a lot of significant investment in India, right, from a technology perspective. So it's becoming a more attractive destination, or potentially staying, in the home country versus pursuing a global dream like you did. Um, but I think it comes back to root cause, right? And I know this is something that you talk about, and I wanted to make sure we hit on this briefly. Um, when we look at a 35-year plus law, maybe a little bit longer than that depending on how you want to look at it, that has caps on employment based green cards based on country of birth, 7% cap. And when you take that and look at the overall numbers, and then you look at the number of approved I-140s for individuals from India and China, the numbers just create a nightmare scenario. And that nightmare scenario is now the line is just continuing to grow longer. I've read a lot of estimates to say by the end of this year that number should be at or above 2 million individuals. That includes the individual that's being sponsored plus their dependents, spouses and dependents. So we're talking about 2 million people, as you mentioned, 100-year wait. I mean, really, a lot of the folks that I know, it's 10, 15, 20 years right now that's part of the wait. So how do we resolve the backlog and create equal opportunities?
I love this question. I think because this question has been on my mind. Like when I do advocacy, I'm not about um, telling all the time that hey, there is a problem, there is a problem. Yes, I am
Mm-hmm,
definitely talking about the problem. At the same
mm-hmm,
time, I am thinking about what solutions should exist to solve this problem.
mm-hmm,
Now, removing the country cap is the first step to actually create that equal opportunity in the
mm-hmm,
employment based category. And I mean,
mm-hmm.
I look at employment based category and diversity based visa as two different categories.
Yep.
So I love this idea of like, we need to have diversity, and America is about diversity and giving equal opportunity to people, irrespective of what they, where they are from. So
Mm-hmm,
diversity green cards are great. We bring 7% of the people from every country, and that ensures that there is diversity ensured in America. Now, employment based is a very different category, and employment is simply about you being able to do the job. So when you come on
mm-hmm,
a visa like H1B, where I think around 70 to 80% of Indians usually get H1B, it's about being able to do that job.
mm-hmm,
So when an American employer is not hiring on the basis of country of birth, American employer is not saying that I need 7% Indians and 7% Chinese and 7% from another country. They are not
right.
doing that. They need the best talent. And that's why people from India and China are getting these jobs. And there is a talent demand shortage. That's why there is a demand and there is a supply, and this is happening. Now, when
Mm-hmm,
the employment based visas are very much about the employer who is the right person, who choosing the right person to hire, then
mm-hmm,
that is what we need to pursue for the green cards also in that category. That's why I'm advocating for this removal of country cap in this
mm-hmm,
employment based category. I
mm-hmm,
am not saying anything needs to happen in the diversity. I think diversity is great.
mm-hmm,
That is great for that category. But in this employment based category, we gotta make sure that people who are coming on merit, people who are getting those jobs, we have to ensure they have a proper pathway to permanent residency. It
mm-hmm,
is acceptable to me even when I'm like sleeping that there are two people hired in the company, and a company said that hey, I'm hiring both of you for software engineer role. One person is
mm-hmm,
born in Nepal, let's say, and one person is born in India, and And he's like, hey, great, I hired both of those you people, you are both great software developers. And
Mm-hmm.
then he's like, I'm going to apply for green cards for you both. And then
Mm-hmm.
one person gets a green card, let's say in a 1 year, and then another person is waiting for 100 years to get a green card. From a rule of law perspective, these two human beings are getting an equal opportunity here for the job, but they are not getting
Mm-hmm.
chances to get a green card, which down the line continues to impact the life of the person who is this in this 100 plus years of wait for a green card. Like their whole
Mm-hmm.
future from that point is kind of dependent on able to get a green card down the line. Like the 60-day layoff on H1B, they're struggling
Mm-hmm.
with that, their kids are struggling, their whole family is struggling, everyone is struggling just because this person was born in this country. And from a rule of law, this is not acceptable. So I feel we should fix this removal of country cap needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That will provide a lot of relief, and actually that is the right thing to do in the employment based category. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very in pro of that, and I have been doing a lot of advocacy around it, going to White House. And
Mm-hmm.
now I think you asked another question, like what is a long term solution? And I think
Yeah.
yes, removal of country cap solves a problem here which is on hand and should provide a lot of relief. But I think down the line, I feel what US immigration misses is a fallback mechanism when none of the US
Mm-hmm.
immigration systems are working. And to that, I simply say we gotta have a law where if someone came to this country legally, has been on different visas, and has been paying taxes and living in this country for 5 plus years, then they should automatically be able to apply for a status which gets them a green card. Now,
Mm-hmm.
number of years can be defined, but until we put a fallback mechanism that, hey, irrespective of who you are, where you are born, does not matter anywhere in the planet. If you
Mm-hmm.
have been in this country for these many years, you belong here then, because you are a
Mm-hmm.
part of the community. You have been living here. You have been legally accepted into this country, whether through this visa or that visa or that visa. It does not matter from an immigrant point of view.
Mm-hmm.
This person got legally accepted in this country. Now, we should have a fallback mechanism where they would get a green card after living in this country for sure after X years. I say that as 5 years. I feel after 5 years, human beings seek more liberty, more freedom to be able to do what they
Mm-hmm.
want to do, and providing them improves the overall American economy, and these global people can actually create a lot of value for the
Mm-hmm.
entire world. So I think these are the two ways I think US immigration system can actually improve significantly.
Yeah, it's kind of like the term common law marriage here, where folks live together, I believe, 7 years, right? And they're considered legally, married. It's kind of a similar philosophy. I know you and I talked about my concept of the H1B EAD, which is ultimately taking folks that have an approved I-140 that has been approved for more than 3 years. At least go ahead and issue them an employment authorization document. And so I think there's a variety of ways to go about it, but ultimately that's the root cause of a lot of situations that we're in. And I call it really, it's a humanitarian crisis that's in our own backyard, and one that not a lot of folks are talking about. And so I really appreciate you shedding light on it. And, I appreciate the vocality that you have, you see with multiple groups a few times, and so just wish you continued success in those endeavors as you continue to speak out about what you believe in, which is the most important thing. And I think that's part of the lifeblood of the United States as a whole. So, last question I have for you before we wrap up here, but what is it that you love about the U.S. the most?
Yeah. Before that, I want to say, like, when I advocate for this, I can agitate a few people because no one wants to sometimes hear the truth that I am speaking, and your truth might not be the same truth that I have. And I can irritate people from my way of speaking out about this issue. I just want the world to know that it comes from a place of good heart and good intentions about
Hmm.
America and the whole world. And I really hope this system changes. It's unfortunate that this problem exists for the last 20 years and people have been struggling, and this my advocacy in this way is very much because I have seen no change happening. So I'm learning that I got to vocalize my voices even stronger, and I got to fight for what I believe in. So do not, I'm my just appeal is like, do not take it from a thinking like I'm coming from a place of like, no love for, but I mean, I have a deep love, and that's why I'm here and continuing to
Mm-hmm.
fight for this and continue to help humanity in ways I can. And America is an integral part of my life, and
Yeah.
it's something I'm very happy about, that this chapter has been a part of my life, and I'm very
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Well, I just am grateful for you coming on here today and sharing your story, sharing OpenSphere to my followers and to the platform here, because I want to make sure that it's something that they are aware of. I think it's very important. I think it's a platform that provides a solution to some problems, and for that I applaud you on a job well done. I can't wait to see where you take it next. Really excited about that, and of course, you're at AtalOvesYou. So at Atal Loves You on Twitter. I think that speaks to exactly who you are as a person. Very much so in my time that I've spent with you. Very gracious, very humble, and very full of life. And so follow Atal on Twitter if you're not already. Of course, I know you're on LinkedIn as well, at Atal Agarwal, and there's a follow way to follow you on LinkedIn as well. And I'll share um, your Twitter profile and LinkedIn profile, as well as the OpenSphere.ai link will be in the video description for folks that want to check that out. Would highly recommend following you and checking out OpenSphere. So um,
Thank you
again,
so much. Yeah, thank you so much for
yeah,
having Robert here.
yeah, I look forward to what we do together next,
Yes.
and just very appreciative of your time and coming on here today with me on a Monday, last Monday here in April, April 29th, 2024, a little after 2 p.m. Eastern and a little after 11 a.m. Pacific. We kicked it off, so we're coming up here on the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, Atal, and just wanted to remind everyone that today's live stream was brought to you by Syndesis, the ideal plan B for high school immigrants currently located in the U.S., as well as my good friends at PERM-ads.com, the industry leader in providing a seamless experience for employers and immigration attorneys navigating the complex PERM recruitment ad phase of the labor certification process, and by Mob Squad. Are you a technology professional facing U.S. work visa-related challenges? Don't leave your fate up to chance. Our partner Mob Squad has a solution. Join the squad. Well, wanted to ask everyone again one last time, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so you're notified anytime we go live like we have here today with Atal, or we post new content here to this channel. If you've made it this far, just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to watch our video here today, or if you're listening or watching this at a later date, we really appreciate your support. Of course, follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. And of course, as I mentioned, definitely want to make sure that you are following Atal on Twitter. He's a great follow. Atal, anything before I close this out?
No, thank you. I love America, and I appreciate all of you watching here. And I wish nothing but the best in helping people able to find their freedom and live their dreams. And thank you,
Yeah.
Robert, for having me here.
I love this country too, more than anything. As much as I love my family and my friends and everything, I love this country. And I think that you nailed the point that folks like you who love it just as much as we do, that's what makes it the greatest country in the world. It just is. And you can't change my mind on that. So for Atal, I'm Robert. I'm the H1B guy, your global source.